Hyun-woo stood at the massive window of the research station, watching the swirling clouds of the gas giant below. The station felt cold, despite the climate controls. Everything about this place felt cold. He had been here for 3 weeks now, trying to help humans and the Velthric find common ground. So far, they had found very little. The Velthric were terrifying. Everyone said so. They stood nearly 8 feet tall, with scales that shifted between deep purple and black. Their eyes were yellow with vertical slits, and their mouths held rows of sharp teeth. They moved like liquid death, every motion precise and predatory. They were born hunters, raised as warriors, and they had spent centuries conquering every species they encountered, until they met humans. The war had lasted 5 years. Neither side could win. Humans were too stubborn to surrender, and the Velthric were too proud to retreat. Finally, both sides agreed to talk. That was why Hyun-woo was here, floating in a tin can between the stars, trying to smile at creatures that could tear him apart. The negotiations were not going well. The Velthric ambassador, Raxthar, barely spoke during meetings. When he did speak, his words were sharp and direct. He saw humans as weak, soft, prey animals pretending to be predators. Hyun-woo could see it in his eyes every time they met. Today had been especially bad. Commander Jisoo had suggested a joint mining operation in the neutral zone. Raxthar had laughed. It was not a friendly sound. He said humans would only slow down Velthric efficiency. He said his people did not need partners who could not keep up. The meeting ended early. Hyun-woo walked back to the human quarters feeling tired. Not physically tired, but tired in his soul. He nodded to the other humans he passed in the corridors. Everyone looked stressed. The weight of 2 civilizations pressed down on them. His small room was exactly like every other room on the station. Gray walls, basic furniture, a narrow bed. But Hyun-woo had made one corner his own. He had a small electric kettle, a collection of mugs, and a precious supply of cocoa powder he had brought from Earth. He filled the kettle with water and turned it on. The quiet hum was comforting. While he waited, he pulled out his favorite mug. It was blue, with white stars, a gift from his sister before he left Earth. She had written on the bottom in permanent marker, "Stay warm out there." The water boiled. Hyun-woo poured it carefully into the mug, then added 2 spoons of cocoa powder. He stirred slowly, watching the powder dissolve into rich brown swirls. The smell filled his small room, warm and sweet. He added a splash of milk from the station's supplies, then dropped in 3 small marshmallows. They floated on top like tiny clouds. He carried the mug to his chair by the window and sat down. The first sip was always the best. The warmth spread through his chest, and for a moment, he was not on a cold station in hostile space. He was home, in his apartment, safe and comfortable. Hyun-woo did not notice the 3 pairs of yellow eyes watching him. The cubs had been following the human for days. They were young, not yet old enough for warrior training, but old enough to be curious. Their father, Raxthar, had brought them to the station to observe the negotiations. He wanted them to learn about diplomacy and see how other species behaved. Mostly, they were bored. Adult talk was dull. The humans were small and moved cautiously, like prey. Nothing about them seemed interesting, until they saw this one human do something strange. The eldest cub, Kess, pressed her face against the transparent barrier that separated the observation corridor from the human quarters. Her 2 brothers, Vorn and Tira, crowded beside her. They watched in silence as the human performed his ritual. "What is he doing?" Vorn whispered. "Drinking," Kess said, but she was not sure. It looked like drinking, but there was more to it. The human was not just consuming liquid for hydration. He was doing something else, something they did not understand. "It looks like mud," Tira said, wrinkling his snout. "Warm mud." The human took another sip, and his whole body relaxed. His eyes closed. A small smile appeared on his face. He looked peaceful, happy, content. The cubs had never seen anything like it. Velthric ate for fuel. Food was consumed quickly and efficiently. There was no ceremony to it, no enjoyment. Strong warriors ate large portions to maintain their strength, that was all. But this human was drinking his warm mud slowly, savoring each sip. He was not hungry. He was not thirsty. He was doing this for another reason entirely. Why does he look like that? Kess asked. Like he is. Satisfied? Maybe it makes him stronger, Vorn suggested. Maybe it is a power drink. Node. Tira shook his head. He looks weaker. Soft. Vulnerable. But Kess was not so sure. She watched the human's face carefully. There was something there she could not name. Not weakness. Something different. Something the Velthric did not have. The human opened his eyes and looked out the window at the gas giant. He took another sip of his warm mud. Then he noticed the cubs watching him. For a moment, he seemed surprised. Then he smiled and raised his mug toward them in a small gesture. The cubs froze. Was this a challenge? A threat? But the human just smiled wider and turned back to his window. He continued drinking his mud slowly, completely unconcerned that 3 predator cubs were watching him. Did you see that? Tira whispered. He showed us his back. He is not afraid. Dumb. He is stupid, Vorn said, but his voice was uncertain. Kess said nothing. She kept watching. The human finished his drink, rinsed the mug in a small sink, and then began preparing for sleep. The whole time, he moved with calm, deliberate motions. No fear, no aggression, just quiet contentment. The cubs returned to their quarters that night confused. Their father was in meetings, so they talked among themselves. I do not understand humans, Vorn said. They should be afraid of us. We are stronger, faster, better hunters. Maybe they are too stupid to be afraid, Tira suggested. But Kess thought about the human's face when he drank his warm mud. That was not stupidity. That was something else. Something the Velthric did not teach. Something that made her curious in a way warrior training never did. The next evening, the cubs returned to the observation corridor. They wanted to see if the human would do it again. Sure enough, at the same time, the human entered his room and began his ritual. Kettle, water, powder, stirring, marshmallows, sipping, and again, that look of perfect contentment. The cubs watched every movement. They memorized the ritual. There was something important here. Something they did not understand, but needed to learn. By the end of the first week, the cubs came every evening. The human noticed them and began to acknowledge their presence with small waves or nods. He never seemed bothered by being watched. Sometimes he would hold up his mug to show them the contents. Once, he mouthed words they could not hear through the barrier. Kess became obsessed. She needed to understand the warm mud. She needed to know why it made the human look so peaceful. In all her short life, she had never seen a Velthric look like that. Warriors looked fierce, determined, strong, but never peaceful. Maybe that was what humans had that Velthric did not. Maybe that was why the war had no winner. On the 10th evening of watching, Kess made a decision. She reached out and activated the communication panel beside the observation window. The human looked up, surprised. Kess leaned close to the microphone and spoke in careful, practiced human language. Human. What is warm mud? Why do you drink? The human's face lit up with the biggest smile Kess had ever seen. Hyunwoo nearly dropped his mug when he heard the young voice through the speaker. He looked at the observation window and saw 3 pairs of yellow eyes staring at him intently. The cubs. They had been watching him for weeks, and now one of them was speaking to him. He walked closer to the window, holding his mug carefully. The eldest cub was standing with her clawed hand on the communication panel. She looked nervous, but determined. Hello, Hyunwoo said gently. This is called hot chocolate, or hot cocoa. We drink it because it makes us feel good. The cub tilted her head. Feel good? It gives you strength? Not physical strength, Hyunwoo explained. It makes us feel happy, comfortable, warm inside. All three cubs looked confused. The eldest one spoke again. You drink something that does not make you stronger? Yes. We call it a treat. Something we have because we enjoy it, not because we need it to survive. There was silence from the other side of the glass. The cubs looked at each other, clearly baffled. Hyunwoo realized he was trying to explain a concept that might not exist in their culture. Do your people have favorite foods? He asked. Things you like to eat more than other things? The middle cub leaned forward. We eat what makes us strong. Large portions for warriors, protein and nutrients. Preference is irrelevant. Hyunwoo nodded slowly. That explained a lot. What is your name? He asked the eldest. I am Kes. This is Vorn and Tira. We are offspring of Ambassador Raxthar. Hyunwoo's eyebrows rose. The ambassador's children. This was either a wonderful opportunity or a terrible risk. I am Hyunwoo. I am pleased to meet you, Kes. Why do you drink warm mud every night? Kes asked. Always the same time. Always the same ritual. What purpose does it serve? It helps me relax after difficult days. Ah, Hyunwoo said honestly. Talking with your father is not always easy. This helps me feel calm. Our father makes you afraid? Vorn asked, sounding proud. No, Hyunwoo said, which seemed to disappoint the young Velthric. He makes me tired, frustrated. So I drink cocoa to help me feel better. Then I sleep well, and tomorrow I can try again. Kes pressed closer to the glass. Can all humans do this? Make themselves feel better with warm mud? Most of us have something like this. For some people, it is tea, or coffee, or soup, or a special food their family made when they were young. Small things that bring comfort. Comfort, Kes repeated the word slowly. This is important to humans? Aye, very important, Hyunwoo said. It helps us survive difficult times. It reminds us of good things. It gives us reasons to keep going. The cubs were silent for a long moment. Then Tira, the youngest, spoke quietly. Velthric do not have this. We have duty, honor, strength, but not comfort. Something in the young voice made Hyunwoo's heart ache. He held up his mug. Would you like to learn about it? The next evening, the cubs returned with more questions. And the evening after that, and the one after that. Hyunwoo found himself looking forward to their visits. He began preparing his cocoa earlier, so he could spend more time talking with them. He learned that Kes was curious about everything, always asking why and how. Vorn was competitive and wanted to understand human weaknesses. Tira was quiet, but observed everything carefully. They were good kids, even if they were also predatory aliens. Hyunwoo explained different types of comfort food. He told them about his grandmother's soup that made him feel safe when he was sick. He described birthday cakes and holiday cookies. He explained how humans gathered to share food and celebrate together. The cubs absorbed every word. They asked questions that showed they were truly trying to understand, not just gathering intelligence. They wanted to know why humans wasted time on things that did not increase survival. Hyunwoo tried to explain that survival was not just about staying alive. It was about having a life worth living. On the third week of conversations, Kes asked the question Hyunwoo had been expecting. Can we taste the warm mud? Hyunwoo paused. This was complicated. He did not know if chocolate was safe for Velthric biology. He did not know if their father would allow it. He did not know if this was crossing some diplomatic line. I would need to check if it is safe for your species, he said carefully. And I would need your father's permission. Our father thinks we are being corrupted, Vorn said bluntly. He says you are making us soft with your strange ideas. That was exactly what Hyunwoo had been afraid of. I do not mean to corrupt anyone. I am just answering your questions honestly. We know, Kes said. But he does not understand. He thinks comfort is weakness. Hyunwoo looked at the three young faces pressed against the glass. They reminded him of his nieces and nephews back home, curious about the world and eager to learn. He made a decision. Then I will talk to him, Hyunwoo said. I will explain, and I will ask his permission properly. The meeting with Raxthar was arranged for the next day. Hyunwoo entered the conference room alone, carrying a thermos of hot cocoa and 2 mugs. The ambassador was already there, standing rather than sitting. He looked even more imposing up close. My offspring tell me you have been teaching them about human customs, Raxthar said without preamble. His voice was deep and rough. I have been answering their questions, Hyunwoo said calmly. They are curious. I did not want to be rude by ignoring them. They speak of comfort and treats and warm mud that serves no purpose. Raxthar's eyes narrowed. You are teaching them weakness. Hyunwoo poured cocoa into both mugs. The rich smell filled the room. With respect, Ambassador, I am teaching them nothing. I am simply showing them how humans cope with stress and difficulty. Your children are intelligent. They asked why I drink this every evening. I told them the truth. The truth that humans need emotional support to function? Raxthar's tone was mocking. The truth that humans understand the difference between surviving and living well, Hyunwoo replied. He pushed 1 mug across the table toward the ambassador. We fought your people for 5 years. We did not break. We did not surrender. Does that seem weak to you? Raxthar was silent, considering. Hyunwoo continued. We can endure because we know what we are fighting for. Not just territory or resources. We fight for our homes, our families, our small comforts. A warrior who knows only duty will fight hard, but a warrior who knows joy will fight harder because they have something precious to protect. The ambassador stared at the mug of cocoa. He did not touch it. Your cubs asked if they could taste this drink, Hyunwoo said. I told them I needed your permission. I also need to verify that it is biologically safe for them, but I believe it would help them understand humans better. Understanding leads to peace. Is that not why we are here? Raxthar finally reached out and picked up the mug. He sniffed it cautiously, his nostrils flaring. This is the warm mud my offspring speak of? Hot chocolate. Hyunwoo confirmed. Made from cocoa beans that grow on Earth. We have been drinking it for thousands of years. We have been drinking it for thousands of years. We have been drinking it for thousands of years. O Poblicate. We have been drinking it for thousands of years. The ambassador took a small sip. His eyes widened slightly. He took another sip, larger this time. Then he set the mug down and looked at Hyunwoo with an unreadable expression. It is pleasant, he admitted grudgingly. I did not expect that. That is the point, Hyunwoo said with a small smile. Small pleasures, in difficult times. Raxthar was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, You may give this to my offspring, under supervised conditions. If your medical staff confirms it is safe for our biology. He paused. But if you make them soft, if you weaken their warrior spirit, I will hold you, personally, responsible. Hyunwoo nodded. I understand. But I do not think you need to worry. Strength and joy are not enemies, Ambassador. They can exist together. The ambassador picked up the mug again and drank the rest of the cocoa. When he left the room, he took the mug with him. The cultural exchange chamber was much larger than necessary for 3 cubs and a human. But somehow, word had spread. What started as a simple tasting had become an event. A dozen Velthrix stood in the observation gallery above, along with an equal number of humans. Everyone wanted to see what would happen when predator cubs tasted human comfort food. Hyunwoo tried not to think about all the eyes watching him. He focused on his preparations. He had spent 2 days working with the station's medical team to confirm that chocolate was safe for Velthric biology. Their systems could process it without problems. In fact, their sense of taste was sharper than humans, which meant they might experience the flavors even more intensely. Commander Jisoo had insisted on bringing Do-yun, the station's best cook, to help prepare multiple variations. They had set up a small preparation area with a heating element, several pots, and an array of ingredients. Hyunwoo had also asked Song-yi, the anthropologist, to document everything. This might be an important moment in human-Velthric relations. The cubs entered the chamber with their father. All three tried to look brave and warrior-like, but Hyunwoo could see the excitement in their eyes. They kept glancing at the preparation table where several mugs waited. "Thank you for coming," Hyunwoo said formally, nodding to Ambassador Raxthar. "We have prepared several types of hot chocolate. Each one is a little different. You can try them all, or stop whenever you wish." Raxthar crossed his arms. "Proceed," Hyunwoo gestured to the table. "The first is traditional hot chocolate. Simple. This is what I drink every evening." He poured steaming cocoa from a pot into 3 small cups, smaller than usual so the cubs could try multiple types without drinking too much. He added a marshmallow to each one. "Crime, crime." Kess approached first, followed by her brothers. They stared at the cups with intense focus, as if the drinks might attack them. "It is hot," Hyunwoo warned. "Blow on it gently first, then take a small sip." Kess picked up her cup carefully, her claws clicking against the ceramic. She blew on the surface, making the marshmallow bob. Then she raised it to her mouth and took a tiny sip. Her entire body went still. Vorn and Tira watched their sister closely, waiting for her reaction. Kess's eyes were wide. She took another sip, this one larger. Then, another. A sound came from her throat, a deep rumbling that Hyunwoo had never heard from a Velthric before. "Kess?" Raxthar said sharply. "What is wrong?" "Nothing is wrong," Kess said, her voice quiet with wonder. "Father, this is... I do not have words. It is warm, sweet, rich. It makes me feel..." She paused, searching for the right word. "Happy." Vorn grabbed his cup immediately and drank. His reaction was just as dramatic. His pupils dilated wide, and he made the same rumbling sound. "This is incredible," he said. "How do humans not drink this constantly?" Tira was more cautious. He sniffed his cup first, taking in the aroma. Then he took a small sip. His eyes closed, and his whole posture relaxed. When he opened his eyes again, they were bright with something Hyunwoo recognized. "Joy. This is what you meant by comfort," Tira said softly. In the observation gallery, the watching Velthric murmured among themselves. Some looked skeptical. Others looked curious. Raxthar's expression was complicated, somewhere between concern and fascination. Hyunwoo poured the second variation. "This one has cinnamon and a little chili pepper. It is spicy." The cubs tried it eagerly now, no longer hesitant. Kess declared it her favorite. The heat of the spice seemed to appeal to her predatory nature, but the chocolate smoothed it into something pleasant rather than painful. The third variation was dark chocolate, less sweet and more bitter. Vorn preferred this one, saying it tasted more serious, more warrior-like. Hyunwoo smiled at that. The fourth was made with extra cream and vanilla. Tira loved it, drinking it slowly and savoring every sip. By the time they finished tasting, all 3 cubs were sitting on the floor of the chamber, holding their favorite cups and looking utterly content. They were not thinking about warrior training, or honor, or strength. They were simply enjoying something pleasant. Song-yi was recording everything, her camera capturing the moment. This was unprecedented. No one had ever seen young Velthric look so peaceful. Raxthar descended from the observation gallery and approached his offspring. He looked down at them with an expression Hyunwoo could not read. "Stand," he commanded. The cubs scrambled to their feet, suddenly remembering where they were. But they still held their cups. You have experienced human comfort food, Raxthar said. Tell me, does it make you weak? Kes met her father's eyes. No, father. It makes me understand why humans fight so fiercely. If I had something this good waiting at home, I would fight very hard to protect it. Vorn nodded. It does not weaken us. It gives us something to fight for, Tira said quietly. I did not know there were things that existed just to make us happy. I thought everything had to be about survival or duty. But this is different. This is good. Raxthar was silent for a long time. Then he looked at Hyunwoo. You said that warriors who know joy fight harder because they have something precious to protect. Yes, Hyunwoo confirmed. I did not believe you, the ambassador said. I thought joy was a distraction. My offspring have experienced something new. They are not weaker. They are expanded. They know something they did not know before. He turned back to Hyunwoo. Humans learned long ago that life is not only about survival. You learned to find pleasure in small things. You learned that comfort and strength can exist together. We Velthric have not learned this. We have been so focused on being strong that we forgot to ask why we wanted to be strong. To protect what matters, Hyunwoo said. That is why we fight. That is why we survive. Not just to exist, but to preserve the good things. Raxthar nodded slowly. I begin to understand why the war ended with no victor. We thought you were weak because you seek comfort. But comfort is not weakness. It is wisdom. You know what you are fighting for. He looked around the chamber at all the watching faces, human and Velthric alike. This drink, this warm mud as my offspring call it, has taught me more about humans than 3 weeks of negotiations. You are not prey pretending to be predators. You are something different, something we need to learn from. Commander Jisoo spoke from the gallery. Does this mean the negotiations can move forward more productively? Yes, Raxthar said. I will recommend to my people that we establish true cultural exchange. We have much to learn from each other. He paused. And I would like to learn more about this chocolate. The cubs made happy sounds, their tails swishing with excitement. Hyunwoo smiled and poured more hot chocolate. Then let me tell you about something we call a dessert cafe. As the afternoon went on, more Velthric came down from the gallery to try the chocolate. Each one had the same reaction of surprise and pleasure. The humans watched with satisfaction, seeing their former enemies discover something simple and good. Doyun began explaining different recipes, and several Velthric took notes. They wanted to know how to make this themselves. They wanted to bring it back to their world. Songyi captured everything, knowing this footage would be shown across both civilizations. The day that predator cubs learned to love hot chocolate. The day that two species found common ground in a simple drink. By evening, the cultural exchange chamber had become an impromptu cafe. Humans and Velthric sat together, drinking chocolate and talking. Real talking, not formal negotiations. They shared stories, and asked questions, and laughed together. Hyunwoo sat with the cubs, teaching them the proper way to make hot chocolate. They watched his every movement with intense concentration, memorizing the ritual. Boil water. Add cocoa. Stir gently. Add marshmallows. Sip slowly. Savor the moment. Will you teach others on our world? Kes asked. My friends should know about this. If your people want me to, I will, Hyunwoo promised. Tira looked up at him with serious eyes. Thank you for showing us this. You have changed something in us. We will never be the same. Hyunwoo touched the young Velthric's shoulder gently. That is what cultural exchange means. We change each other. We become more than we were. And in that moment, surrounded by former enemies sharing warm drinks, Hyunwoo knew that real peace was possible. 6 months had passed since the tasting ceremony. Hyunwoo stood in his apartment on Earth, watching news coverage of something he never imagined he would see. A Velthric cafe had opened in the capital city of their homeworld. The footage showed young Velthric sitting at tables, drinking hot chocolate, and talking peacefully. Some were even smiling, an expression that looked strange on their predatory faces but was unmistakably genuine. The peace treaty had been signed 2 months after the tasting. Trade agreements followed quickly, but the most unexpected development was the cultural revolution happening among young Velthric. They wanted to experience what the cubs had discovered. They wanted to know about comfort and pleasure and joy. Hyun-woo's communication device chimed. A video call from Kes. He answered immediately. Hyun-woo! Kes's face filled the screen. She was in a bright space, filled with tables and chairs. Behind her, Hyun-woo could see dozens of young Velthric holding cups. Look at what we have built. I am watching it on the news right now, Hyun-woo said, grinning. Kes, this is amazing. I call it the Warm Mud Sanctuary, she said proudly. We serve 17 types of hot chocolate now. Some are human recipes you taught me. Others we created ourselves using ingredients from our world. There is one, with frostberry, that makes your tongue tingle. Another, with ember root, that warms you from the inside. How are the elders reacting? Hyun-woo asked. He knew that not all Velthric were happy about these changes. Kes's expression became more serious. Some are angry. They say we are abandoning our warrior culture. There have been protests outside my sanctuary. I am sorry, Hyun-woo said. I never wanted to cause problems for your people. Do not apologize, Kes said firmly. You gave us a gift. The elders are afraid of change, but the young ones understand. We are not becoming weak. We are becoming more complete. A warrior who knows only fighting is like a sword with no handle. Dangerous, but incomplete. Behind Kes, Vorn appeared on screen. Brother, Hyun-woo said warmly. Hyun-woo, you must see this. Vorn held up a datapad showing trade statistics. Chocolate imports from Earth have increased by 300%. Every young Velthric wants to try it. Humans are becoming very rich from this trade. That was true. Hyun-woo had been contacted by a human entrepreneur named Taejin, who wanted his advice on starting a chocolate export business. Taejin had big plans. He wanted to create special blends for Velthric preferences, teach their people how to prepare it properly, and establish cafes across Velthric space. Human Taejin visited last week, Kes said. He brought samples of 30 different chocolates. He also brought a human named Unji, who works for your government. They want to establish formal cultural food exchange programs. What did you think of them? Hyun-woo asked. Taejin sees opportunity, Vorn said. He is very focused on profit. But he also understands quality. He would not sell us bad chocolate just to make money. He has pride in his product. Unji is different, Kes added. She cares about bringing our peoples together. She spent hours talking to me about how food creates bonds between species. She says sharing meals is one of the oldest peace rituals in the galaxy. Tira's face appeared on screen, squeezing in beside his siblings. Tell him about Father. Father has become a spokesperson for cultural exchange, Kes said, her eyes bright with amusement. He gives speeches about how understanding humans made him a better ambassador. He says that we were wrong to think only of strength and conquest. He says there are other ways to be powerful. Hyun-woo felt emotion swell in his chest. Ambassador Raxthar, the fierce warrior who had once looked at humans with contempt, was now advocating for cultural understanding. I wish I could see one of his speeches. I will send you recordings, Vorn promised. He mentions you often. He calls you the human who taught predator cubs to appreciate warm mud. It has become a famous story. Too famous, Kes said, rolling her eyes. Every young Velthric knows it. They come to my sanctuary asking to hear the story from me personally. I have told it 1,000 times. That is good, is it not? Hyun-woo asked. Stories create culture. Yes. But I am tired of being famous, Kes said. I just wanted to share something good. Now I am some kind of symbol of the new generation. Hyun-woo understood. You started something important, Kes. Change always begins with individuals. You and your brothers were brave enough to be curious about something different. That took courage. Some do not see it that way, Tira said quietly. The conservative faction says we have betrayed our heritage. They say our ancestors would be ashamed. What do you say to them? Hyun-woo asked. That our ancestors would want us to survive and thrive, Kes replied. The old ways brought us war and isolation. The new way brings us peace and connection. We honor our ancestors by building a better future, not by blindly following the past. Vorn added, and I tell them that enjoying chocolate does not make me unable to fight. Last month, I won the regional combat trials. I defeated opponents who mock me for drinking warm mud. I proved that comfort and strength coexist. Hyun-woo felt proud of them. They had grown so much in 6 months. They were becoming leaders of their generation. The Quaster then worked of the turns is USteen, ANS well. There is something else, Kes said, her tone becoming excited again. We want to create a joint human Velthric cafe on the border station, a place where both species work together. Taejin and Unji support the idea. Will you help us plan it? Of course, Hyun-woo said immediately. They spent the next hour discussing plans. The cafe would serve human and Velthric comfort foods. It would be staffed by both species, teaching each other their recipes and customs. It would be a symbol of cooperation and friendship. After the call ended, Hyun-woo sat in his apartment feeling amazed. He had just wanted to drink his cocoa in peace. He never imagined it would start a cultural revolution. His device chimed again. This time, it was a message from Commander Jisoo. She wanted him to return to the station. A ceremony was being planned. Hyun-woo sighed. He did not want to be honored. He had just been kind to some curious cubs. But he understood that sometimes small actions became symbols. If accepting an honor would help the peace process, he would do it. He looked at his collection of cocoa powder on the kitchen shelf. The same cocoa that had started everything. Something so simple, so ordinary to humans, had changed the relationship between two species. Another message arrived. This one from Taejin. He wanted to name his chocolate company after Hyun-woo. Hyun-woo's warm mud. The taste that united species. Hyun-woo laughed and sent back a message declining. He suggested a better name. Bridge Chocolate. Connecting worlds through flavor. Taejin agreed immediately. Over the next few weeks, Hyun-woo watched as the chocolate trade expanded. Human ships carried cocoa beans and chocolate products to Velthric worlds. Velthric ships brought their own comfort foods to Earth. Frost berries that tasted like winter mornings. Ember root that warmed like summer sun. Crystal honey that sparkled on the tongue. Young people of both species were the most enthusiastic. They gathered in new cafes that opened in every major city. They shared drinks and stories. They learned each other's languages. Some became friends. Thanks for watching. And then were guest and subscribed to the city. A few even became more than friends, though cross-species relationships were still controversial. The conservative Velthric faction continued to protest. They held demonstrations outside the cafes. They gave speeches warning about the loss of traditional values. But their numbers were shrinking. Most Velthric, especially the young ones, had tried chocolate now. They had experienced comfort and joy. They did not want to go back. Ambassador Raxthar gave a speech that became famous across both civilizations. My cubs taught me something important, he said. They taught me that change is not betrayal. We do not abandon our strength by embracing new ideas. We become stronger. The humans did not defeat us in war, but they did defeat our narrow thinking. They showed us there is more to life than conquest. There is connection, there is pleasure, there is peace. These things do not weaken us. They give us reasons to be strong. The speech was played on news channels across the galaxy. Other species watched with interest. If the fierce Velthric could make peace with humans over something as simple as chocolate, what was possible for everyone else? Hyunwoo received a letter from a Velthric elder who had been one of the strongest critics of the changes. The letter said, "I tried the chocolate my grandson kept offering me. I refused many times, but he was persistent. When I finally tasted it, I understood why he was so insistent. It is good, very good. I am still not sure about all these changes happening so fast, but I admit that something this pleasant cannot be entirely bad. Perhaps the young ones are wiser than I gave them credit for." Hyunwoo kept that letter. It represented something important. People could change. Even old warriors could learn new things. The joint cafe opened 3 months later. Hyunwoo attended the ceremony. Kess, Vorn, and Tira were there. Now young adults, with important roles in their society. Human and Velthric workers prepared drinks together. Their movements synchronized after weeks of training. The first drink served was hot chocolate, of course. Half human recipe, half Velthric innovation. It was perfect. 20 years had passed like a dream. Hyunwoo stood at the window of the memorial station, the same window where 3 curious cubs had once watched him drink cocoa. But everything else had changed. His hair was gray now, and his face had lines that came from years of smiling. He had spent 2 decades traveling between worlds, teaching about comfort food and cultural exchange. He had written books, given lectures, and helped establish hundreds of cafes across dozens of planets. But he always returned here for the anniversary. The warm mud remembrance had become an official ceremony, celebrated by both humans and Velthric. Every year on this date, people gathered to share hot chocolate and remember how peace began with a simple drink. "Teacher Hyunwoo?" A young voice spoke behind him. He turned to see Junho, his apprentice. The young man carried a box of supplies for the ceremony. "Everything is ready," Junho said. "The delegation from the Velthric homeworld has arrived. Kess and her family are asking for you." "Awer," Hyunwoo smiled. "Her family. I still cannot believe she has cubs of her own now." They walked together through the station corridors. So much had changed in 20 years. The station had expanded into a proper cultural center. There were classrooms, where humans and Velthric learned together. Art galleries showing works from both species. Gardens growing plants from multiple worlds. And at the center of it all, a large cafe called the First Cup, built exactly where Hyunwoo's small room had been. Kess waited in the main hall. She was fully grown now, a respected cultural ambassador in her own right. Beside her stood 3 small Velthric cubs, her offspring. They had the same curious eyes their mother once had. "Hyunwoo." Kess embraced him carefully, mindful of her strength. "It is good to see you. Too much time passes between visits." "I know," Hyunwoo said. "But I am here for the important days." He looked at the cubs. "Are these the famous youngsters I have heard so much about?" "No." The cubs stepped forward, trying to look brave. The eldest, a female, spoke. "Grandmother Kess has told us stories about you. You are the human who taught her about warm mud." Hyunwoo laughed. "He would always be known for that. Your grandmother taught me just as much. She taught me that curiosity is the beginning of friendship." More people arrived. Vorn and Tira came with their own families. They had become successful in their own ways. Vorn led the Velthric military's cultural integration program, teaching warriors about other species. Tira was a philosopher who wrote about the balance between strength and joy. Ambassador Raxthar entered the hall. He was very old now, moving slowly but with dignity. He had retired from official duties but always attended the ceremony. "Hyunwoo, my old friend," he said, his voice rough with age. "Ambassador," Hyunwoo replied warmly. They had become genuine friends over the years. "I think you can call me Raxthar after 20 years, the old Velthric said with amusement. "We are past formalities." The ceremony began at sunset. The main hall was filled with hundreds of people, human and Velthric, mixing together naturally. Children of both species played together in the corners. No one looked twice at the sight anymore. It was normal now. Commander Jisoo, also retired but still respected, stood to speak. 20 years ago, in this station, something unexpected happened. A human xenobiologist drank hot chocolate, while 3 young Velthric watched. That small moment changed the course of history. It taught us that peace does not always come from treaties and negotiations. Sometimes it comes from simple kindness and genuine curiosity. She gestured to Hyunwoo. Today, we honor not just one human, but the idea he represented, that sharing our small pleasures can bridge even the greatest divides. Applause filled the hall. Hyunwoo felt embarrassed, but grateful. Kes stood next to Jisoo. I want my cubs to perform the ritual that my brothers and I learned from Hyunwoo. It has become a tradition in our family. Every evening, we prepare warm mud together and share it. It is our time to talk, to connect, to remember that we are family. The 3 young cubs came forward to a preparation table. They had clearly practiced. They moved with careful precision, following the ritual exactly as Hyunwoo had once taught their grandmother. Boil the water. Add the cocoa powder. Stir gently in circles. Add the marshmallows. Wait for it to cool slightly. Then sip slowly, savoring each taste. The cubs performed every step perfectly. When they took their first sips, their faces showed the same wonder their grandmother had shown 20 years ago. The audience watched in respectful silence. When the cubs finished, the eldest spoke. This drink is good, but the ritual is more important. It teaches us to slow down, to appreciate, to be present with each other. That is what Hyunwoo gave us. Not just chocolate, but mindfulness. More applause, this time louder. Hyunwoo felt tears in his eyes. The ceremony continued with stories. People shared how chocolate had impacted their lives. A Velthric warrior told how drinking cocoa before battles helped him stay calm and focused. A human teacher described how she used hot chocolate to help students from both species feel comfortable in her classroom. A young couple, one human and one Velthric, explained how they had met in a cafe and bonded over their love of spiced chocolate. Taejin spoke about how Bridge Chocolate had grown into the largest cultural food company in the galaxy. We employ 10,000 people now, both human and Velthric. We have introduced 40 species to chocolate, but we never forget where it started. One human sharing his comfort with curious cubs. Unji, now a senior diplomat, talked about how food exchange programs had become standard in all first contact situations. We learned from Hyunwoo that before we discuss politics or trade, we should share a meal. Breaking bread together, or in this case sharing chocolate, creates bonds that make everything else easier. As the sun set completely, the hall lights dimmed. Junho and other volunteers distributed cups of hot chocolate to everyone present. When everyone had a cup, Hyunwoo stood to speak. 20 years, he said, his voice carrying through the quiet hall. It seems like yesterday, and also like a lifetime ago. When I first came to this station, I was alone and worried. I did not know if peace was possible. I drank cocoa every evening because it was the only thing that made me feel safe. He paused, looking around at all the faces watching him. 3 young Velthric watched me through that window over there. They could have ignored me. They could have mocked me. Instead, they asked questions. They wanted to understand. That curiosity saved us all. He raised his cup. This ceremony is not about me, or about chocolate, or even about humans and Velthric. It is about the courage to be curious about others, the willingness to try something new, the wisdom to know that different does not mean wrong. Everyone raised their cups. To curiosity, Hyunwoo said. To kindness. To peace. To all the small moments that change everything. To warm mud, someone shouted, and everyone laughed. They drank together, hundreds of voices murmuring in satisfaction as the chocolate warmed them from inside. After the formal ceremony, people mingled and talked. The cubs gathered around Hyunwoo, asking questions just like their grandmother once had. He answered patiently, enjoying their enthusiasm. Rockstar sat beside Hyunwoo eventually. I was wrong about you, the old Velthric said. When we first met, I thought you were weak. I thought all humans were weak. I remember, Hyunwoo said gently. But you were strong in ways I did not understand. Raxthar continued. You had the strength to be kind when others might have been afraid. The strength to share something precious instead of keeping it for yourself. The strength to believe that peace was possible even when it seemed impossible. He looked at his grandcubs playing with human children. My grandchildren will never know the war. They will grow up in a universe where humans and Velthric are friends. They will think this is normal. They will not know how hard it was, how close we came to destroying each other. That is good, Hyunwoo said. Every generation should have it easier than the last. That is progress. I want to thank you, Raxthar said seriously. For everything, for being patient with my cubs, for teaching them about joy, for showing this old warrior that there is more to life than fighting. Hyunwoo touched the old Velthric's arm. You gave me just as much. You let your cubs be curious. You were brave enough to change your mind. You helped your entire species see a new path. That took incredible courage. They sat together in comfortable silence, two old friends watching the next generation celebrate peace. As the evening went on, Junho approached Hyunwoo. Teacher, the Velthric Council has asked me to establish comfort cafes on 3 new colony worlds. They want you to advise. Hyunwoo smiled. You do not need my advice anymore, Junho. But you started it all, Junho protested. And now you will continue it, Hyunwoo said. That is how it should work. I taught you. You teach others. They teach more. The knowledge spreads like ripples in water. Junho nodded, understanding. I will make you proud. You already have, Hyunwoo assured him. The ceremony went late into the night. People did not want to leave. The hall was filled with warmth and laughter, and the rich smell of chocolate. Human and Velthric children fell asleep in their parents' arms, bellies full of cocoa and hearts full of happiness. Hyunwoo stood at the window one last time before leaving. He looked out at the stars, thinking about how far they had all come. A simple cup of hot chocolate had started all this. It seemed impossible, but it was true. Kes joined him at the window. What are you thinking about? She asked. About that first evening, Hyunwoo said. When you asked me why I drank warm mud, I never imagined where that question would lead. Neither did I, Kes said. I just wanted to understand. And that understanding changed everything. She held up her cup, still half full. 2 small moments that changed the world. Hyunwoo touched his cup to hers. To curiosity and kindness. They drank together, teacher and student, human and Velthric, friends who had helped build a bridge between worlds with nothing more than warm chocolate and open hearts. Outside, the stars shone bright, witnessing a universe where former enemies had become family. All because 3 predator cubs once watched a lonely human find comfort in a simple cup of cocoa, and had the courage to ask why.